Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and showing up. My name is Steve Carl, and just to recap, I started doing these live streamed poetry readings in spring of 2020 once the pandemic started and made it clear that we weren't going to be gathering in large groups anytime soon. And initially, since I hadn't written that much in the preceding 15 years, it was all stuff I dug out of the archives. So for the first 6 months or so, it was all material that I had dug out of file cabinets. And I basically read every poem that I'd written since 1991. So we did that for about 6 months, and in the meantime, I had sort of overcome my 15-year bout of writer's block, and I was writing new stuff. So, but obviously much slower. So we did 2 readings last year, once in the spring and once in the summer, and those were comprised of new things that I had written since the pandemic started. So, and this is the 3rd one in that series. Actually, it's the 4th, but the 3rd in the current series that I'm working on, which I've been working on since June of 2020. And which I have given the overall title of Hypnopompic Diaries. Hypnopompic refers to the state of the transition state in between being asleep and waking up. Its companion term is hypnagogic, which refers to the state in between being awake and falling asleep. I'd gotten interested in brain studies that had been done where they had done scans of the brain in different stages of sleep and daily lives of people, and the sort of map of which brain areas are active in when you're asleep, and particularly when you're dreaming, are significantly different than the map of the brain when you're awake. And I started wondering what a poetry might look like when it was written when the brain was in one of those sleep or dream configurations. Obviously, brain states are not necessarily equal to or reducible to mental states, but there is some correlation between those two. So I got interested in what a poetry might look like that was coming out of that brain and mind configuration. But I couldn't figure out a way to pick up a pen and start writing in my sleep. So So I sort of settled for the next best thing, which is, as I've gotten older, I've noticed that it takes me longer to wake up in the morning than it used to. And so what I started doing in June of 2020 is, as soon as I was awake enough to pick up a pen and a writing pad, I would sit and write until I woke completely up in the morning. So I was writing in a state of being half asleep and half awake, and obviously gradually moving from one to the other. So that's why these are called the Hypnopompic Diaries, because it's kind of like an ongoing sort of report and reflection on coming out of that mental state. Whenever any day that I get a chance to do that. On work days I usually don't do it, so it happens on weekends and days off and holidays and things like that, so as often as I can. Although sometimes if I can't sleep at night, I will grab a pen and write in the dark until I get drowsy again and fall asleep. So some of these come out of that state, which is kind of somewhere in between being asleep and being awake as well. So and then So I've been doing this for a long time now, almost 2 years, and so periodically I'll kind of find break points and split it off into smaller volumes. So this is the third volume that I'm working on now, and this volume is called Apophenic Epiphanies. Apophenic, now, explain another term here. That's a term that's used in psychology to refer to the pathology of perceiving connections or meaningful patterns between things that are unrelated or random. So like in what they used to call paranoid schizophrenia, I don't think that's a diagnostic term that's used anymore, but where you see signs everywhere that everyone's out to get you, or probably an example that more people would be familiar with nowadays would be QAnon, which is kind of a mass public apophenic phenomenon. But the thing is, it's not. I was thinking about that, and it strikes me that it's not necessarily the case that all things are unrelated or random. There are states of epiphany where we discover connections between things that are there that we just don't perceive all the time. And then I was also further thinking that language itself is an apophenic phenomenon, that the words that we use, whether it's written or signed or spoken words, don't have an inherent meaningfulness. That they have the meaningfulness that we give them in negotiating that communication amongst ourselves. So language is kind of an apophenic, a non-pathological apophenic phenomenon. So that was one of the epiphanies right there. So that's the title that I gave to these pieces. So I've been writing this particular sequence, the Apophenic Epiphanies, start in January of 2021, and there are a lot of them. So I'm only going to read part of them today, and then we'll pick up at another time, and I'll read more of them. So, and I'm also going to start with a poem that's not part of the Hypnopompic Diaries. This was a poem that I just wrote. It's a New Year's poem. So since that comes from that same time period, I'm going to start with that. The tone is a little different than the Hypnopompic Diaries, which should become obvious. January. Your patron god is a two-faced so-and-so whose name rhymes with my asshole. A new year or another year zero. Start from scratch. Forget the itch that prompted it. Last year's irritant trumped by tomorrow's salve. The simians say goodbye, but the beetles don't know why. They stay high and say hello. Hello, hello. And so here are the Hypnopompic Diaries. Asleep, holding my favorite hand. Cats stretch reavers as entailed collection agencies for chi, their marvelous persuasion meltdowns. The free throw of ideas. Pass me a nasturtium. Plumline reaches an appetizer. Fallow grocery man leans into it. That was January 2nd. These poems don't have titles as such, so I'll just read the date as if it were the title. January 3rd. The false equator regards spontaneity in grim elocutions. meandering officiously through soupy melodic karate continua. Zero mellifluent partygoers stage a solar monotony, albeit wrenching dilatory vocabulary from time-honored fellows, hip navies. Creatures bode willfully across tempoed structures, nauseously opening washer prophecies along the thread. Also, I should point out that there's some construction going on directly across the street, so if it sometimes sounds like I'm chanting poetry along to Depeche Mode soundtrack or something, that's what's going on. January 9th through the 18th. Solution appearance during crisis mode. The flavor of the week is treason. The Punisher logo is the tell. Apoquel quells it well, but I prefer actual hell. Fraudulent fraud claims. Lacquered apocalypse. Photoshop quartet. Convenience store coup. Pablum patrol. Makeshift nose candy. Ass clown revolution. January 23rd. Celery Queen mysteries. Secondary primary. Pops one in the face. Berates mace. Swallowing space and tangibly wasted time in flying. Wisely miming. Piping hot designer. Approximation criming. Detention cellophane. Cellar in the salary cellar. Don't squander the carriage fees on apparent popular demonstration. Wasted doppelganger seeking localized pigmentation biases. Fret wreckage multiplier. COVID meltdown probability. January 24th. Fervent motorway dining approaches negative territory wastage. A feral mob tactic is opening Capitol doors, as bent photon focus or phoneme faux pas celebrates mellotron punishment. Bannister coping is inimicable to Muppet Phantasm cluster operation. I am a ferocity machine and welcome an upcoming Trump comeuppance. Bring on the Boston pile driver. Metatarsal zero balance. The popular economies of waterfall. Startle a filibuster dappled hangover and out. January 30th. Briss maneuver welcomes its part-time sonographic equivalent. Melted protest monotone, filtration, methodology, openings. You operate my villainous reportage, concentrating imperative weft assailants. A mostly altruistic duty confusion ensues when recuperative solutions comprise improvement. Apparent westward drift inclinations pardon the feline penalty, boredom, drizzle. January 31st. Montmartre implicated pendulum proclivity massage. Apostle from the French Quarter. Mardi Gras in martyr danger. West Coast Benadryl keening on through the notorious aperture of spring. Cleansing Guinevere. Damsel attention surplus survivor. Sophocles drama queen in quarantine. Othello accelerator. Iago corsage. Excellency generator. Menagerie boat on a contusion dark middle sea. Chances parkour drop D of occasional remonstration. February 6th. Votive frog equals condensed contention, candled pallor of celestial ballot of ballet. Incel barfly ropes in major oopsie under fulfillment carousel wonderment calculus. Broken window guarantee bases nullification rendering until harrowing apparent lifelock. Defenestration continues, overcoming whale issue schematic. Pardon telephone's endorsement when opened penitent moderates the encyclical pantaloon. February 7th. Paladin, mannequin, poser, falafel, corpuscle. Emergence coordinate promises fulfilling resonator over simplified pardon apparatus. Generator monstrosity fellowship pressed into determinative welfare continuum in perpetuity. Blanket incineration developer negation philosophy attenuates fortified atavism toward cultural motif ingenuity, but the fog persists over and by. Zipline tendency overcome by cylindrical nepotism to family zeitgeist. Calendula nightmares intrude. February 13th through the 15th. Lingering smoke and bird call wrestle for the morning's attention. Brave trellis canine, groaning POTUS day. Serotonin junkyard wanderings capitulate to base rate instinct envelopment, every time surge. Window participant fails fatal enjambment over celebrated contingency calculation salad. Hindrance mechanic conducts checkup felony waiver upon cinch coaching pas de deux. Apartment tidal wave burdens an apparently unwelcome telemetry measure into maritime extravagance. February 27th. Celebrate, concentrate, deviate. Misanthropic lollygag faces concussive infusion memoir. I upend a signal interior for substantial paramour integrity. Possible light filtration co-commands endorsement of power couplet, as incredible survey of powdered wig nonsense jars the populace. Can you guys hear this over all that? Okay. February 28th. Casual affirmation to the moon-swimming invitee. Brace your correlatives. The mayonnaise is really going to terraform this one. Discontinued punk band from down undead. You're up a crick in this neck of the woods. The directional overture promises fatalism, but the third act yanks it back. The listener left stranded on the beach. Then some, but handsome, tide climbing randomness. March 6th. Catering mishap spells trouble for dingo manager. Fellowship ain't cheap these days, or any. Leave me mobile, but don't mobilize me. That's freedom. It's a far cry from going far and crying. Elephantine ritual among the birds, and not just any birds, these birds specifically. Gerrymandering my heart, cour decor. March 7th through the 10th. Sour gummy patrol and flavor panda. Attention multiplication syndrome empowers fallibility location and carotid steaminess. I measure a clocked outlet informer, transposing altruism and alliteration. Festschrift damage is inevitable, creating inflammation of the esteem. Your eyes roll back in your mind. Co-writer, Bobcat Melancholy Nemesis. Reportage breakdown undermines our retreat from danger tangent. Entirety target. Fellowship wheelhouse along the IE spectrum. Sanitized hieroglyph. March 13th. Copolymer evacuation on Apology TV. A welcome intervention manhandled by Rapunzel. Desecrate the malformed daughter, whose single portion portends a misfit well-being marker. Lavender coefficients are looming in the data. Forestall misconception with photographic nitpicking. Warrantless roadkill favor my vestiges. March 14th through the 20th. Tau is T-A-O. Well endowed. Pi Day celebration. Ronco toaster or whatever. Open season on whatchamacallits. Representative of the clown layer of society. Ferret optimizer. Our apology for tuna. A calibration that allows for the use of mongoose. Several species on hair trigger alert. Towering inferno. Pandering to Sanders. Welcome, campers. Our failure rate is preposterous, but we prosper. Attainment will cost you. Congratulatory lunges fill the highlight reel. Service in an approximated tongue traverses a void we commonly avoid or eschew. Throw in the towel. March 26th. Jealousy alternative. The way the umbrella releases maintains decorum but recaptures incentive to vilify. Dessert certification. Lovely panorama of millipede. Adventurous mind satisfaction wedges rumination into millennial ambiguity. Moreover, cloud-based non-entity bulldozes intellectual savagery. Continue to repulse admonishment. Chicken and territory will repeat its dull modifications upwardly, attention fixed and then broken. Parlor tricksters devolve into fly lords accordingly. Attachment detail, full-on derangement, assertiveness surge, conservative burlesque, conformity performance. Also March 26th. Tchaikovsky terminal processor. Ghost baking makes a comeback. Boomerang. Earwax connectivity elevating a pardon stance to fool a positive linger. Welcome forestry milk toasts. Your butter is surfed. Motility general mostly ferreted away from hoax laundering scandal. The National Egg Play recommends canalization fever pitching all season. Gentle mismanagement ruse fails to endeavor traction or pine tar solvency. Flow arrangement in the baking soda. Armchair warrior apocalypse. March 27th. Variety nestling prefigures remote wandering, efficiency. Teleportation router made routine. Gadfly propaganda maintains emotional dissection, envelope. Paratactical pardon necessity beckons. Unlearning the outcomes, Wonderama, delectable, crumble. Fake eddies in the time pool war on facetious entities like broken clockwork. A garrulous orgasm collapses into drowsy caresses. March 28th. Amorous modifier of well-meant distress. Alarm bell of palate cleansing attempted coup. Fabulistic overlay markets a recession as adjustment, right-sizing your unemployment. Thoroughly protested, you lighten the rolls. March 31st. Relinquishment messaging approximates prodigal awakening like cantering in perilously melancholy partnership. Sallow marketing deployment hones in on destitute mask mediation, technical dread. Menstruation waiver confiscated by cheating government stupidly apologists for religious corruption. April 3rd. Sought and sudden like rarefied turgid star stuff. Phoneme challenged and particle wealthy, mass canticle of indignation. Repent of its unflowering. Farcical underpinnings of leftover contrition, you dovetail reluctantly. Ghost favorite, my summation warrior, you cleanse palate for an epoch recalcitrant with horror. Maybe this venerated boondoggle. April 4th. Contemplative Septemberist nominates the apocalypse, a rarefied error over evangelism. Terroristic melancholia exacerbates religiosity, decided non-prophecy. Centennial cranium delegates fidelity to parkour landscape monetizer, eternally yearning for gerrymandered market share of sheer terror. April 10th. Emergence anniversary overpowers quotidian routine to transform attention to a fete. Open target puts volume motor up to a non-delusional zipped wing. Merit badge dealer happens to tell fairy story to ketamine survivor. Zero connotation rambles where sentience obeys posturing laws. Co-locate, that one's hard. Co-locate, co-locate me, brewery. The pine nuts of attitude capture my defining oracles. Did not realize that would be so difficult to say. April 11th. Gaze toward an untoward attempt at flowing. A powdered virgin collects opt-in followers. Matriarchal aura subsumes laconic damsel. Next white grievance to overcome. April 17th. Ghoulish insistence on respect powers the middle manager's flatulence. An aporia within a lacuna set off by honoraria. You can say in camera again, just pretend it's Mary X. Designated glamour puss hijacks the cultural hippocampus. Archetypal fondness for pallbearing. His funereal input, slug down a dram of integrity juice and show up for plate crossing. April 18th. Every carrot stick dichotomy, all endeavor to sound like a genesis, each impeccable in its simplicity and flattening the affect of psychoto-complexity. Boom, one's desire achieved, while the other, seen as instrument, who knows? Zenitentiary, meditation state prison. April 24th through May 1st. Elbow the ladder's interrogated fortune, pending darkness foliage to concentric whimsies. Appalled signature lattice flourished opinionated. Bowling for bellwethers beelines the funeral. Sentinel parade conflates designations. The comedic line held for 50. An acrostic a day isn't the memory secret. And then I'm going to end up with something a little different here. In our fast-moving culture, who has time for polysyllabic words when we can just shorten and abbreviate everything? Even saying the names of our celebrity couples like Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez takes too much time when we can all just say Benifer instead. Well, I've noticed a few less commonly used but still vitally important long phrases that could use a little abbreviating. So as a public service, I'm going to share them here. So I'll hold up these cards containing each long phrase, and then I'll say the abbreviated form of the phrase out loud. Ready? Atrophy. Total. Reprimand. Circus. Or, for those Monty Python fans out there, circus. Pistachio. Concentric. And zero. So remember, those are vitally important phrases, and now you know the shortcuts that you can use. Okay, so I'm all done for today. Thank you very much for attending or watching on video, depending on which one of those you did. Thank you. So I made it to May. I'll have another reading probably next Sunday, but keep your eyes out on Facebook, and I'll do the event thing when I know for sure. And let's see if I can. If there's any comments or questions, I will try to answer those. There's the comments. Looks like no questions, but yes, thank you to everyone, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.